Hello, this is Connor Bradley. I'm going to be analyzing the memory and cognition of the Joker from the 2019 film starring Joaquin Phoenix. Also, just apologies in advance, I am sick today. But anyways, yeah, let's get started. So the introduction for this is going to be, first off, this film was super massive because of the relevance of it to a lot of people, and I think that that's something we should keep in mind when going through this presentation. And this film seeks to see how societal factors influence people's behavior, and it's mostly through someone's mind who's rapidly deteriorating because of this. And the goal of this presentation is to show how poverty and the lack of mental health resources can lead to inhibited cognitive functions that can cause dangerous behavior. So, an analysis of Arthur Fleck, our main character. He struggles to find good help with his mental health problems and with all of his other issues throughout the film. And he has two coping mechanisms when he faces any sort of confrontation. One is going to be just blanking out completely, which is seen when he's getting yelled at for losing the sign that the kid stole from him in the beginning of the film. And then the second one is going to be him trying to divert his attention to something else to keep his composure. Like when talking to the mental health counselor about his problems, he starts smoking a cigarette, tapping his leg, just to kind of keep it together. But with the first coping mechanism, what he usually ends up doing is bottling it up and then taking that anger out later, which we see when he beats up a dumpster and then starts almost breaks its foot. Apologies. But because of all this, Arthur views all the schemas in his life to be kind of negative overall. And then throughout the film, it leads to a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. But anyways, let's get into more of the memory of Arthur Fleck. So Arthur tends to imagine an imaginary relationship with his neighbor Sophie, and imagines fake situations like them going on dates and going on walks, that sort of stuff, and he revisits these time and time again. So this is already a huge problem showing memory bias. And then he imagines a father-son relationship with the talk show host Murray Franklin. And this is a completely made-up relationship that causes him to hold himself to a standard that's completely unachievable in his own brain, which he also revisits time and time again. And because of his lack of security and his mental health problems, his memory is negatively affected at nearly every level. We see it pretty clearly behind his he has problems acquiring memories, retrieving memories, and storing memories, and along with the misinformation effect and memory bias. So the cognition of Arthur Fleck is going to be that Arthur's way of processing his memory are very crucial throughout the film, and it drives pretty much all of his decisions. So for starters, Arthur's delusions about Sophie leads him to engage in very dangerous behavior, such as stalking, and this later ends up leading to Sophie's death. And then when Arthur sees Murray as a father figure being shattered, he makes it a goal to kill him, which he later succeeds in doing, unfortunately. And then Arthur later unlocks some hidden memories that were repressed from him, which is another side effect of his trauma. And when he unlocks these memories, it causes him to lose the little bit of identity that he had. And then it also drastically changed his perceptions of other people. And then going into kind of like into stages. For the first stage, there's isolation and loneliness. Arthur grew up pretty much alone, had no friends, and was only treated kindly by one person, who was the office clerk in the asylum. And this kind of lays the foundation for a lot of his behavior. He struggles to be happy, and a lot of his schemas are funded off of him being alone and not having people, and this causes him to be obviously pretty negative overall. But then stage 2 leads to fantasy and escapism. So he forms these false memories for people like Bill Murray and Sophie, and holds himself to this standard that's not achievable for him in order to cope with this. But this leads to kind of delusions, and then when he can't handle the letdown of it all, it leads to stage 3, which is violence. Arthur leads to killing people in the first 2 stages, and it leads to stage 4, which is liberation. And Arthur tends to gain this great sense of freedom after killing somebody. This is only achievable because of the first 3 stages, however. If at any point these were stopped, then stage 4 probably couldn't have happened. Now on to how Arthur transformed into the Joker, because Joker is more about Arthur's than the Joker himself. And so there's poverty, the identity crisis, the lack of respect, regaining memories, and killing with meaning. So poverty is pretty evident within the very beginning of the movie. Arthur is starved, and he's just a clown who's barely scraping by. And he is unable to find good mental health resources as a result of this. The little bit that he managed to get was stripped away from him because of the election season and because there was budget cuts. So this also shows a clear political underlining behind this poverty as well. But yes, Arthur is not able to get mental health resources because he is impoverished, and even though he says he wants help, he's unable to get it. And then his identity crisis is that he was never given a real identity, and when he unlocks his repressed memories about his mother and everything, he loses the little bit that he had left. And then his lack of respect. There is no point in his life, at least from how he's formed it in his own brain, where he is treated well. Every schema that he manages to form is negative, and his coping mechanisms are fantasy, and this leads to, again, memory problems at basically every single level. And then when he regains these memories, this leads to massive problems later on. And then his actual transformation into Joker is when he stops spree killing, and when he starts... I'm sorry, my little kitty cat came up. Say hi, Astrid. So killing with meaning was when Arthur Fleck decided to kill Bill Murray, and as a way of living up to his fantasy. So on to the cognition of Joker. The Joker's cognition is incredibly geared towards violence, especially those more fortunate than him. And he tends to get significantly more delusional, and his memory becomes significantly more broken for the little bit of him that is shown. So on to the real world. Again, this movie became incredibly big because of its relevance to everything, in not only people's day-to-day lives, but just kind of larger things in general. So, one, millions of people do not have help to mental health services, often because of poverty. And you can see with this graph, this is more of on a global scale. You can see a clear class division between high-income countries and low-income countries. People who have money get mental health resources. People who do not have money do not get mental health resources. And then two is going to be that the mental health crisis is political, and resources are often gatekept from lower class people, as you can see in the graph. And the Joker shows not only the importance of mental health and the need to have a stable living and economic situation, but also that poorer people who need the mental health more do not receive it. And this lack of security has a terrible effect on people's development and their behavior throughout their lives. And this can lead to things that are abnormal at best, but can be very dangerous and put people in serious harm's way if it's not taken care of and if it's just exasperated. And 1 in 10 people in America live in poverty, according to the American Census, as of 2022. So this is a huge problem, and it's not just about people's mental health, it's about the material conditions in which they live, and this drastically changes the memory that they have, the cognition they have, and obviously the choices they make as a result of these things. But yeah, that's my presentation. Thank you for coming in. I hope you have a nice night.